Taehyung Kim rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the complex diagrams on his computer screen. At 28, he was one of the youngest aerospace engineers at Horizon Space Technologies, and tomorrow's presentation on propulsion efficiency could make or break his career. The clock on his desk showed 2:17 a.m. when he finally decided to call it a night. He had barely drifted to sleep when a strange blue glow pulled him back to consciousness. Taehyung blinked, thinking he was dreaming, until he saw the light pulsing in the corner of his bedroom. "What the?" he started, sitting up as the light expanded. A figure materialized in the blue haze. Distinctly feminine, but clearly not human. Her skin had a faint silver sheen, and her eyes were large, almond-shaped, and an impossible shade of violet. She stumbled forward, clutching her side where a dark fluid seeped between her fingers. "Help," she whispered, the words somehow echoing in Taehyung's mind rather than reaching his ears. Then she collapsed onto his bedroom floor. Despite his shock, Taehyung rushed to her side. The visitor was light as he moved her to his bed. A small device on her wrist flickered, projecting symbols in the air. When she regained consciousness, she touched the device. "My name is Mina," she said, her lips not matching the words. "My ship malfunctioned. I am not here to harm you." Taehyung's scientific mind raced with questions, but he focused on the immediate situation. "You're injured. How can I help you?" "The atmosphere. Not harmful, but different. I will heal, but I need shelter." Her eyes darted nervously around his room. "No authorities. Please." Taehyung nodded slowly. "I'll help you, Mina. You're safe here." The wound on her side leaked a silvery blue fluid that seemed to glow faintly in the dark. Taehyung brought a first aid kit from his bathroom, but stopped, unsure if human medicine would help or harm her. "Can I clean the wound?" he asked. Mina nodded weakly. "Water only. My body will do the rest." Taehyung gently washed away the strange fluid with a damp cloth. The cut underneath was deep but clean, as if made by a sharp blade. "What happened to you?" he asked as he worked. "Debris from my ship. The landing system failed." Her eyes closed briefly in pain. "I was not supposed to make contact with your kind. This is a serious breach of protocol." Taehyung almost laughed. "I think we're past worrying about protocol." Outside, a helicopter passed overhead, its searchlight briefly illuminating his window. Mina flinched, her whole body tensing. "They're looking for me," she whispered. "My ship's energy signature would have been detected when it crashed." "Who's looking for you?" "Your government agencies. They have been aware of our observation posts for decades, though they lack proof of our existence." Taehyung pulled the blinds closed. "You should rest. We'll figure things out in the morning." But sleep didn't come for him. As Mina's breathing steadied, Taehyung sat in a chair by the bed, watching her. Her silvery skin seemed to pulse gently with her heartbeat, and occasionally symbols would flash across her wrist device. By morning, Mina's condition had improved dramatically. Taehyung found her examining his collection of engineering textbooks with intense interest. "Your physics models are incomplete," she said without looking up. "But the mathematical approach is fascinating. Are you feeling better?" Taehyung asked, ignoring the slight to human science. She turned to him, the wound now just a faint line on her side. "Yes, my body repairs quickly." Taehyung made breakfast, toast and eggs for himself, and a glass of water for Mina, who explained she didn't need to eat as humans did. "My species absorbs energy directly," she said, placing her hand near the kitchen window where sunlight streamed in. Her skin seemed to drink in the light, glowing brighter where the rays touched her. As they sat at his small table, Taehyung finally asked the question burning in his mind. "Why are you here?" "On Earth, I mean." Mina's violet eyes met his. "I am a scout. My people have been observing Earth for centuries, monitoring your development." "Like a zoo?" Taehyung frowned. "More like anthropologists studying the newly discovered tribe. Your species is young, but evolving rapidly." She paused. "And potentially dangerous." Before Taehyun could respond, his phone buzzed with a news alert. He opened it to see reports of an unidentified aerial phenomenon spotted over his city last night, with government officials denying any unusual activity. "They're covering it up," he said, showing Minna the screen. She nodded grimly. "Standard procedure, but they will be searching. I need to contact my ship, or what's left of it." "Where did you crash?" "The forest, 20 kilometers north of here. The ship's cloaking system should still be functioning, but I need to retrieve my communication module." Taehyun thought for a moment. "I can drive you there tonight. Less chance of being seen in the dark." Minna's expression softened with what might have been gratitude. "You're taking an enormous risk helping me." "Well," Taehyun said with a small smile, "it's not every day an alien crashes into my bedroom." That evening, as they prepared to leave, Minna placed her hand on Taehyun's arm. Her touch sent a strange, pleasant warmth through his skin. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "know that you have done something remarkable today. You've made first contact, and you didn't respond with fear or violence." Taehyun looked into her alien eyes and saw something familiar there. Intelligence, curiosity, and perhaps a touch of the same wonder he felt. "Let's go find your ship," he said, "and then you can tell me all about the stars." 3 days after their return from retrieving Mina's communication device from her crashed ship, Taehyun found himself sitting across from her at his small kitchen table. The alien visitor had recovered fully, the silver sheen of her skin now bright and healthy. She was studying the history book Taehyun had given her with intense focus. "Your wars make no sense," Minna said, looking up from the book. "You fight over invisible lines on your planet's surface." Taehyun laughed softly. "I guess it does seem strange when you put it that way." They shared a simple dinner, rice and vegetables for him, while Minna consumed small blue capsules from a container she'd retrieved from her ship. "What are those, exactly?" Taehyun asked, pointing to the capsules. "Nutrient concentrates. My body processes energy differently than yours." She tilted her head, studying him with those violet eyes. "Your species was deemed too unpredictable for official contact. Your capacity for both compassion and cruelty confused our observers." Taehyun stopped eating. "Then why are you here?" "On Earth, I mean." Mina's expression darkened. "Necessity. A species we call the Void moves through our sector of the galaxy, consuming worlds. My people face extinction." She paused, rolling one of the blue capsules between her fingers. "I was searching for potential allies when my stealth drive failed, and I crashed here. And you chose Earth. We can barely reach our own moon reliably." She smiled, a gesture she had clearly learned from watching him. "Your technology is primitive, but your adaptability is unprecedented. Humans solve problems in ways we never consider." Taehyun considered this. "Is that a good thing?" "It might be the thing that saves us all." Minna stood and walked to the window, looking up at the night sky. "The Void thinks in patterns, like my people do. But humans, you think sideways. You make leaps of logic that seem absurd until they work." Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Taehyun went to work at Horizon Space Technologies during the day, while Minna stayed in his apartment, devouring books and digital information. In the evenings, they exchanged knowledge. Taehyun introduced Minna to human culture, music that made her silver skin flush blue with emotion, films that left her puzzled by human humor. He played back for her one night, and tears of silvery liquid ran down her cheeks. "The mathematics in this music," she whispered. "It's beautiful." Comedy was harder for her to grasp. Taehyun showed her a classic comedy film, but she stared blankly at the screen. "Why is falling down funny?" she asked. "It just is," Taehyun replied, then spent an hour trying to explain the concept of slapstick humor. In return, Minna shared knowledge of stellar cartography and quantum mechanics that left Taehyun breathless with the implications. One night, she glanced over his shoulder at the propulsion equations he was working on for Horizon. "Your equations are wrong," she said simply. The core principles of your model fail to account for quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. That's impossible to measure with our technology, Taehyun protested. Minna took his pencil and quickly rewrote the formulas, adding symbols he didn't recognize. These are just placeholders for concepts your mathematics hasn't defined yet, she explained. But your approach was innovative. No Aturi would have attempted this method. Taehyun stared at the altered equations. If I turned this in at work, they'd think I was insane. Or they'd think you were a genius, Minna replied. Your species makes its greatest advances through such leaps of imagination. One rainy evening, Taehyun came home to find Minna had disassembled his microwave and rebuilt it into something entirely different. What have you done? He asked, alarmed. I needed to send a coded signal to check if any Aturi ships were nearby, she explained. Don't worry, I can change it back. Did you get an answer? Minna nodded. A research vessel is passing through a neighboring system. They can retrieve me in approximately 30 Earth days. Taehyun felt an unexpected pang of sadness at this news. That's good. That night, as rain tapped against the windows, Taehyun found Minna standing in the dark living room, her skin glowing faintly. Is everything okay? He asked. I am conflicted, she admitted. My mission was to assess potential allies against the Void. I was not supposed to reveal myself. Do you regret it? Crashing here. Minna turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the city lights from outside. No, you have shown me that humans are more than our studies suggested. You did not fear me. You helped me without question. Anyone would have done the same, Taehyun said. No, Minna said firmly. Our observations show that is not true. Many humans would have reacted with violence or called your authorities. You are different. She reached out, hesitantly, and touched his hand. A warm, pleasant sensation ran up his arm, like gentle electricity. I have a confession, she said softly. The device I built from your microwave, it was not just to contact my people. I've been studying your internet, learning about human emotions. Why? Because I feel something unexpected toward you, something my species rarely experiences with outsiders. Her skin flushed slightly blue. I believe humans call it friendship. Taehyun smiled. Yes, that's what we call it. As they stood there in the glow of her silvery skin, Taehyun realized that their worlds had already changed irrevocably. Not just because an alien had crashed on Earth, but because two beings from across the stars had found common ground. The pounding on Taehyun's door came at dawn, jerking him awake from a dream about distant stars. Mr. Kim, National Intelligence Service, opened the door. He bolted upright, heart hammering in his chest. Beside him, Minna was already on her feet, her silver skin pulsing with alarm. They detected my repair signals, she whispered, her violet eyes wide with fear. More pounding. Final warning, Mr. Kim. We have a warrant. Taehyun jumped out of bed and grabbed the emergency bag he had prepared days ago. Food, water, first aid supplies, and cash. He had hoped they wouldn't need it. The fire escape, he said quietly, pointing to the window. As they heard the sound of the door being forced open, Taehyun and Minna slipped out onto the metal platform. The morning air was cold against Taehyun's skin. 3 black SUVs pulled into the alley below, and men in dark suits poured out. Hold on to me, Minna whispered. She touched her wrist device, and a shimmering field of energy surrounded them both. It felt like being wrapped in a warm, tingling blanket. Taehyun looked down at the agents below. We can't jump. It's too high. Trust me, Minna said, taking his hand. They jumped, and instead of falling, they drifted gently downward like leaves caught in a breeze. The agents ran past, looking right through them without seeing. We're invisible, Taehyun breathed. Not exactly, Minna explained as they touched down softly. The field bends light and sound around us. But it won't last long. We need to move. They slipped past the agents and made their way to the street. Taehyun led Mina to a subway station, where they caught a train heading out of the city. As they settled into their seats, Taehyun noticed Mina's skin had dulled slightly. "Are you okay?" he asked. "The energy field drained my reserves," she said. "I'll recover." Through the train windows, they watched the city fall away, replaced by green hills and small towns. They changed trains twice, each time checking carefully for followers. By midday, they reached a small rural station where Taehyun rented a car using cash. "Where are we going?" Mina asked as they drove along winding country roads. "My uncle's cabin in the mountains. He passed away last year, but the family kept the property. No one goes there this time of year." As they drove, Mina demonstrated abilities that stunned Taehyun. She sensed a police checkpoint before they could see it, allowing them to take a different route. When their car had a flat tire, she moved the spare from the trunk to the wheel with just a gesture, the objects floating through the air at her command. "How are you doing that?" Taehyun asked, amazed. "My species evolved to manipulate energy fields," she explained. "What you call telekinesis is simply an extension of our natural abilities." Later, when they stopped for supplies at a small store, Mina placed her hand on a credit card machine, and the screen flickered before displaying transaction approved, without Taehyun even inserting a card. "Did you just hack that?" he whispered as they left with their bags. "I interfaced with its simple systems," she replied. "I left no trace and added funds to the store's account to cover our items." By evening, they reached the cabin, a small wooden structure nestled among pine trees. Inside was basic but comfortable. A main room with a fireplace, a small kitchen, one bedroom, and a bathroom with a shower that ran on well water. Taehyun lit a fire while Mina scanned the area with her wrist device. "No tracking signals within range," she reported. "But they will expand their search. Your government agencies are persistent." "How did they find us in the first place?" Taehyun asked as he prepared a simple meal of canned soup and bread. "The communication device I built from your microwave emitted a unique energy signature. I underestimated your government's detection capabilities." She looked down. "I should have been more careful." After they ate, Taehyun watched as Mina stepped outside into the clear night. Her skin seemed to drink in the moonlight, glowing more brightly. "Can you contact your people?" he asked, joining her under the stars. Mina adjusted her wrist device, which projected a holographic display of star systems. "Yes, but the nearest vessel is far. They cannot reach us for 20 Earth days." Her violet eyes met his. "I am sorry for bringing danger to you." Taehyun shook his head. "You're worth it." A comfortable silence fell between them as they gazed up at the stars. Then Mina suddenly stiffened. "What is it?" Taehyun asked. "Aircraft approaching. Military, I think." Sure enough, moments later, Taehyun heard the distant thump of helicopter blades. Mina's hand found his in the darkness. "They're using thermal imaging to search the forest," she said. "If they fly directly overhead, they'll find us." Taehyun squeezed her hand. "What do we do?" Mina's violet eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. "I have an idea, but it's risky. I can create a thermal dispersion field, but it will drain my energy severely. I'll need time to recover afterward." "Do it," Taehyun said without hesitation. Mina closed her eyes, and her skin began to pulse with blue light. The air around the cabin shimmered like a heat mirage. The helicopter grew louder, its searchlight sweeping the trees nearby. Taehyun held his breath as the light passed just beyond the cabin. Once, twice, and then the helicopter moved on, its sound gradually fading. Mina collapsed against him, her skin now a dull gray. "I've got you," he said, lifting her light form and carrying her inside. As he placed her gently on the bed, he realized that in just a few short weeks, this being from another world had become more important to him than anything else in his life. Outside, the forest was quiet again, but Taehyun knew their peace wouldn't last. The pursuit had only begun. A week passed in the mountain cabin. Taehyun and Minna settled into a cautious routine, always watching for signs of pursuit. They took turns keeping watch, gathered food from the forest, and spoke in hushed tones, even though no one was around to hear them. One morning, Taehyun woke to find Minna sitting by the window, her breathing labored. The silver tint of her skin had faded to a dull, ashen gray. "Minna, what's wrong?" he asked, rushing to her side. She tried to smile, but it turned into a grimace. "It's nothing. Just tired." But as the day went on, her condition worsened. She could barely walk without support, and her violet eyes had dimmed to a pale lavender. "Stop hiding it," Taehyun finally said that evening. "Tell me what's happening to you." Minna sank onto the couch, her breathing shallow. "Earth's atmosphere," she admitted. "My body was adapted for short exposure only. The oxygen levels are too high, and your nitrogen mix is toxic to me with prolonged exposure. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Taehyun knelt beside her, taking her hand. It felt cold for the first time since they'd met. "Nothing you could do," she whispered. "My ship contained breathing equipment, but it was destroyed in the crash." Taehyun stood up suddenly. "There has to be a way." He dumped the contents of Minna's repair kit onto the kitchen table. Strange tools, small devices with blinking lights, crystals that hummed when touched. Then he gathered every piece of electronics in the cabin. An old radio, the microwave from the kitchen, a broken laptop he found in a closet. "What are you doing?" Minna asked weakly from the couch. "Saving your life," Taehyun answered simply. He worked through the night, his engineering mind racing. The principles had to be similar: filter the air, adjust its composition. He connected wires from the radio to a crystal from Minna's kit. He extracted the fan from the laptop and modified it with Atari components. The microwave's power unit became an energy source. By morning, Minna could barely speak. Her once silver skin was now almost translucent, showing a network of pale blue veins underneath. "Taehyun," she called softly. "Stop, please." He looked up from his work, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "I won't let you die." "This shouldn't work," Minna whispered as she watched him connect impossible combinations of Earth and Atari technology. "The materials are incompatible." "Then we'll make them compatible," Taehyun answered, not looking up from his work. He soldered another connection, ignoring the small burn on his finger. For 2 more days, Taehyun barely slept. He ate only when Minna insisted, bringing food to the table where he worked. The cabin floor became littered with discarded attempts and burnt-out components. On the 3rd day, Minna's breathing became dangerously shallow. Her eyes remained closed most of the time, and when she did speak, her voice was just a thread of sound. "It's ready," Taehyun finally said, holding a strange device cobbled together from human and alien parts. It was ugly, wires exposed, tape holding sections together. But when he pressed a button, it hummed to life. He carried it to Minna's side and positioned it next to her. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a faint blue field spread from the device, expanding until it enveloped Minna in a bubble of shimmering air. "Please work," Taehyun whispered, taking her cold hand. Minutes passed, then an hour. Taehyun refused to move, watching for any sign of improvement. Finally, as the sun began to set, Minna's fingers twitched in his. Her eyes opened, violet color returning. "How?" she asked simply. "Your analyzer showed me the atmospheric composition you needed. I used your filtration crystal to separate oxygen molecules and the converter to adjust nitrogen levels." Taehyun smiled tiredly. The hard part was building a field generator from scratch. Within hours, color returned to Minna's skin, the beautiful silver sheen spreading from her core to her limbs. By nightfall, she was sitting up, the blue field surrounding her like a second skin. "You did the impossible," she said, touching the device with wonder. "No Atari scientist would have attempted this with such primitive materials." Taehyun shrugged. "Human ingenuity. Like you said." Their victory celebration was simple. They shared a meal, Minna now able to eat small amounts of human food through her purified airfield. They talked about the stars, about hope, about the 13 days remaining until her people would arrive. But their joy was short-lived. The next morning, Taehyun stepped outside to gather firewood and spotted something in the sky, small black shapes circling above the forest. "Drones," he said, rushing back inside. "They found us." Mina's face fell. The device. It must be emitting a signature they can track. They watched from the window as black SUVs appeared on the forest road below. Men in tactical gear spilled out, surrounding the cabin at a distance. "We can run," Mina suggested, clutching her life-saving device. "I have enough strength now." Taehyun considered this, then shook his head. "No more running." He walked to the door, his decision made. "Stay inside." "Taehyun." "No." Mina reached for him, but he was already stepping onto the porch, hands raised high. "I want to speak to whoever's in charge," he called out, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "What's in this cabin changes everything we know about the universe," a voice answered through a megaphone. "Mr. Kim, you are harboring a non-terrestrial entity. This is a matter of national security." "Yes," Taehyun agreed. "It is, but not in the way you think." He took a deep breath, knowing his next words would change the course of human history forever. "Her name is Mina. Her people need our help. And I think we need theirs too." Director Joo Park of the National Intelligence Service sat across from Taehyun in a secure government facility. The room was plain with white walls and no windows. Only a metal table separated them. Mina sat beside Taehyun, her silver skin glowing softly under the harsh lights. The life support device Taehyun had built hummed quietly, maintaining her protective air bubble. Director Park tapped her fingers on a tablet showing data from Mina's wrist device. Her face showed nothing as she read. "If what you're saying is true, this changes everything," she said finally, looking up at them. "It does," Taehyun agreed. "But not if we treat Mina as a threat or a research subject. Her people are advanced beyond our understanding, and they need allies." Director Park leaned forward. "And this threat, the Void, you believe it will eventually reach Earth?" "Yes," Mina said. "They move slowly but without stopping. First come the scout ships, then the harvesters. They strip planets of resources and life. Nothing survives. And your people want our help. What can humans offer that your advanced civilization cannot?" Taehyun placed the makeshift life support device on the table. "This, human creativity. We solve problems differently." For the next 7 days, Taehyun and Mina remained in the facility, explaining everything to carefully selected scientists and government officials. They showed star maps of the Void's progress, shared data on Eturi technology, and demonstrated Mina's abilities. Director Park made daily calls to world leaders. What had begun as a potential threat was now seen as humanity's greatest opportunity. 2 weeks later, as promised, an Eturi ship appeared in Earth's orbit. It was smooth and silver, shaped like a teardrop, and far larger than any human spacecraft. Unlike the panicked response in movies, the world governments, led by Director Park, maintained calm and established controlled contact. The ship landed in a remote desert area surrounded by military forces from 7 nations. When its doors opened, 3 Eturi emerged. They looked similar to Mina, tall with silver skin and violet eyes, but each had unique patterns on their skin like living tattoos. News channels worldwide broadcast the historic meeting. Humans and Eturi stood face to face for the first time in official capacity. Mina served as translator until communication devices could be distributed. The Eturi commander, Juan, examined Taehyun's life support device with what could only be described as amazement. "This should have been impossible," he said, his words translated by a small silver disc. "No Eturi scientist would have attempted such adaptations. Our materials were never designed to interface with Earth technology." "That's why we need each other," Mina explained. Humans see possibilities where we see only established patterns. Juan nodded slowly. Perhaps this is why the old texts speak of Earth, a young species with unexpected qualities. Old texts? Director Park asked sharply. There are stories, Juan said, of ancient Aeteri visiting Earth thousands of years ago. We thought they were myths. In the months that followed, Earth and the Aeteri formed an alliance. Knowledge was exchanged, carefully and gradually to avoid destabilizing human society. Aeteri medical technology cured several human diseases within weeks. Human art and music spread among the Aeteri, creating new forms of expression they had never considered. And against the approaching void, plans were made for a defense that combined Aeteri technology with human creativity. Where the Aeteri saw only inevitable defeat based on patterns and probabilities, humans saw opportunities and impossible strategies that just might work. As for Taehyun, he was appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Aeteri homeworld. His engineering background and unique understanding of both cultures made him the perfect bridge between worlds. The night before his departure, he stood on the roof of the new Interstellar Relations building. The stars shone brightly above him. Minna joined him, no longer needing the life support device. The Aeteri had provided her with a small implant that protected her from Earth's atmosphere. "Are you scared?" she asked, looking at his face in the moonlight. "Terrified," he admitted with a smile. "I've never even left Korea before, and now I'm going to another planet." "You'll be the first human to see our world," Minna said, "but not the last." Taehyun looked up at the stars, thinking of all that had changed in just a few months. "I've learned that the universe is so much bigger than we imagined, and somehow, in all that vastness, you found me." Minna's hand, silver and warm, slipped into his. Perhaps that was the point all along. She looked different now. Her time on Earth had changed her. She wore human clothes, jeans, and a simple blouse, and had adopted human gestures. Taehyun, too, had changed. The nervous engineer was now confident and resolute, ready to represent his entire species. "Do you think we can really stop the void?" Taehyun asked quietly. "Alone? No," Minna answered honestly. "Together, we have a chance." The next day, a small crowd gathered to watch Taehyun board the Aeteri ship. Director Park shook his hand firmly. "Remembered," she said, "you represent all of us now." Taehyun nodded. "I won't forget." As he walked up the ramp with Minna, he turned for one last look at Earth. The blue sky, the green trees, the world that now seemed both precious and small. Above them, the stars no longer represented distant, unreachable points of light. They were destinations, homes, and new beginnings. The end.